So, in other news, the UK has had to send 50,000 COVID-19 samples to the US for testing. So, according to the BBC, the government has admitted sending out about 50,000 COVID tests to the US last week for processing after operational issues in the UK labs. So, I think what's happened is after they ramped up testing, they didn't hit 100,000, as we know. Those tests were in the post. I think they've had issues getting all the samples tested because they didn't build the labs in, because they didn't build the infrastructure, because our government are a bunch of idiots. The Department of Health said sending swabs abroad is among the contingencies to deal with teething problems. So my only issue with this is how much is this costing, and why aren't the UK labs operational? I thought we could do this all on our own. And another point being is that doesn't the US have their own problems, like with testing and stuff? How come they're able to test so many people and also test our samples, and we're not even able to test our own samples? So the samples were airlifted to the US in chartered flights, according to flights from Stansted Airport. The Sunday Telegraph has said they're getting some mad stick from Johnson and the gang because they're always after him. They're always putting out stories about him, and he's so mad about it. Results will be validated in the UK and sent to patients as soon as possible. So it's going to take ages for people to get tested, and then if they're at work, if they're an essential worker, it's going to take longer for them. So the longer that they're in work whilst these tests are going on, the more chance they have of spreading the illness. And also, if they test negative, then it also means that potentially they'll be on the bench longer. If they're staying at home whilst the test is ongoing. So there'll be, say if you're a healthcare worker, you've just been tested, and they tell you, look, stay at home because you've just been tested. That's 4 or 5 days you're on the bench, essentially. A spokeswoman for the Department of Health said that the Health and Social Care DHSC said expanding Britain's virus testing network has involved setting up an entirely new lab network to process tests. Adding contingencies such as sending swabs abroad were in place for when a problem arises. You've had since March. You've had over 2 months to figure this out. Meanwhile, the government sent an urgent alert to hospitals recording 15.8 million goggles due to safety concerns. Like, what on earth is going on? Although the Tiger Eye protectors, what a name. What a stupid name. Purchased in 2009 during the swine flu epidemic, where in the CE marked boxes, meaning that they have met European Union safety requirements. The goggles have been since retested. So they've had these in storage since 2009, and they're not up to spec now because they've been retested and regulations have changed. Why the hell are we using stuff from over a decade ago? This is how bad government planning is. She added that hospitals should have enough goggles to immediately stop the use of the Tiger Eye protectors. A further 9.2 million goggles are in quarantine, she added. So, I imagine if you're in a hospital and you have these quote-unquote Tiger Eye protectors, and you catch the coronavirus, could you sue the government because they've given you equipment which doesn't meet European standards? I wonder. The revelations come as the government failed to hit 100,000 targets. Thank you, BBC, for actually putting that in, even though in your headline you covered it wrongly. In a previous article, it goes there were 98,878 tests delivered in the 24 hours 9 o'clock BST on Friday, down from 97,000. So these are just tests delivered, as well as people being tested, not 100,000 people being tested. There's a difference. You might think it's semantics, but there is a genuine difference here. Health leaders said there are expected fluctuations in the figures, and that testing was still much higher than it had been at the start of the outbreak. Well done. You've tested more people now than you did at the start. Well done. Let's go on a victory lap with Jack Atlas. Absolute idiots. Speaking at the Downing Street coronavirus briefing on Saturday, Deputy Chief Medical Officer Professor Jonathan Van Tam, what a cool name, said he expected fluctuation in the day-to-day figures. He said we are now at a high plateau in the region of 100,000 tests per day. That's a lie. I don't think that we can read too much into the day-to-day variations, but the macro picture is now at a much, much higher level than it was at the beginning of the crisis. Don't take a victory lap over the fact that the testing's higher now. It's so stupid. BBC Health reporter Rachel, oh god, I can't pronounce her name, Rachel, said the UK did not start with the resources to do mass testing, unlike some other countries. I wonder why that is. That could be another article worth covering. But also said that it took several weeks to expand from initial 8 public health laboratories to a wider network of private and university labs. It's going to cost an arm and a leg using private labs. Unlike the UK, countries like Germany, South Korea rapidly stockpiled kits and made tests available to a larger number of labs. Professor Van Tam also said the briefing that the test and trace strategy of finding people with the virus and tracking people they have been in contact with is part of the solution needed to ease the lockdown. So we're essentially still planning on doing the things South Korea has done for months, and I'll cover a story with South Korea where they managed to track someone who had, I think he infected around the person infected around 14 people. He went to about 6 different bars slash nightclubs, infected about 14 different people. They managed to track the person who it was, and they told all the people that he came in contact with to self-isolate. We can't do that in the UK. I mean, you could argue that the bars and stuff are closed, but if you go to a shop, for example, you could spread it around there. And so, yeah, that'll wrap this one up. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.